presentation and a recording of it available to all of you after today's presentation. So if you want to share it with your friends, you can absolutely do so. The other thing I want to mention to you is we also have a dialog box on kind of your toolbar here. I'll be collecting questions. I got to be honest with you. Often during these sessions, man, I run into the 30-minute time frame and we stop, and I don't have time for a lot of Q&A. But if you'll capture those questions in there, I'll be certain to get back to you individually and answer those for you. So let's get started. Today's agenda, I'll talk a little bit about the need for a great communication strategy, especially for you organizations that have smaller staffs. I'm going to talk about our communications methodology and how we've been able to scale all of these efforts with, frankly, a two-person communications team. The importance of using an all-in approach regarding social, how to implement some live video, the value of podcasting, and the return on investment that I've experienced with our organization and with the associations that we work with. For those of you that don't know me, here's a little bit about us. I've been in association business for almost 30 years now. I worked at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the American Trucking Associations, and started in the mailroom. That shows you how old I am. We used to have those, a mailroom for the National Association of Personnel Services. Our firm is really focused on business development growth for our association clients. We'll make more than 250,000 contacts annually for our clients, and we'll sell millions of dollars in membership, exhibits, ads, and sponsorships for our clients. And that work has enabled us to really learn about a lot of these things that we're going to talk about today. And we work with a variety of different organizations. The interesting thing in that area is I recognize that every association is different, has its own culture, has its own value proposition. These are unique to that association. I also recognize often we have some of the same challenges. So some of those key themes we're going to address today in our discussion. One of the things I want to do is to build a little context with you. And if you look at the association advisor that Naylor puts out, and they've got a great association solutions operation in my view, they put out some pretty good content. They did a survey of communications executives in the association space, and the statement was that the average number of communications across all the different platforms was approximately 31, one a day. And I believe in this communications revolution that we're in right now. After all, the greatest invention since the printing press is probably the iPhone, and it's a little more than 10 years old in terms of what it's done to our communications in our global society. That's just not enough. I think that associations, businesses will fail primarily for two reasons. They don't know you or they forget about you. And I tell you, in our work that we do for associations in building their membership, let's say, it's amazing to me that members of the widget manufacturers industry often don't know anything about the Widget Manufacturers Association. So I absolutely believe this bottom line here. You will fail by people not knowing you or forgetting about you, and that makes you irrelevant. So I've also thought about this in terms of being a communications and an association professional for a number of years, and it's this. Members, now in this environment, members of your organization are evaluating you every single year, whether you're worth their time and their money. And I know that you're probably renewing about 90% of those folks, but it's getting more difficult and more difficult. They're becoming more, I think, interested in evaluating you on an annual basis. So therefore, I run this communication strategy through every single communication that we would put out or we would recommend for an association would be this. Does this communications piece reinforce member value, that this was a good idea to be a member, or if they were a non-member, that they would be missing out on something, or they're not in the know. And every single piece of information I put out should go through that filter. Is it making people go, damn, that was a good idea, or, I'm missing out on things? And I think that's absolutely critical. So, let's talk about a methodology that's worked well for us. And again, this is myself and one communications director, and that's my colleague Kim Gillen. Here's how we do it. Here's our inventory. We do blogs and some piece of news, 4 news pieces each week. On a weekly basis, we also do 2 live videos, a weekly podcast, e-newsletter. On a monthly basis, we're going to run a webinar like today, an ebook. We're recording today's webinar so we can do an ebook or a white paper on a quarterly basis. And I'm going to tell you about how we do all that. On top of that, we're doing more than 150 times monthly. Now, does it look like a lot of work? Yes, it is, but it's intentional, and we know that it drives so much value for our clients and establishes us as a thought leader in the industry and actually drives more business for our association, although I rarely, if ever, sell when we're doing all those things. I very rarely sell anything when we do these things. So, let's talk about how we do it. This is actually the system that we put in place. It starts with the first thing, and that's actually Kim records a monthly, I call it a riff session. Basically, it's an hour-long discussion where she says, hey, let's talk about what's happening in membership, sponsorship, sales, how to build out a prospectus, right? We talk for about an hour, and she records that session. And we do it in chunks. What's happening in membership? What's happening in sales? What's happening in leadership? Are there any association news items that I want to opine on? Okay? She records those and turns those little snippets into, real simply, blog pieces. Those blogs go onto our website, and we put them across our social media platforms. But it's the beginning or the cornerstone of our whole process. Because what we do then is those blog sessions, okay, now become my script for live video, right? They're my script for live video that I'm doing on Facebook. And, oh, by the way, the LinkedIn platform for video is tremendous. And we're getting a lot of energy and a lot of engagement from people in the business realm on LinkedIn. I would encourage you to do that. Those blogs and videos are then put up onto our website. We are sharing them on social, and I'll talk about our strategies around everybody involved in social in this company. And that also, the blogs, that content, those videos also become the premise and the foundational content of our weekly e-newsletter. The blog script then also becomes my podcast. I take that blog, and man, that's basically my podcast that I read. It's my script for that podcast. We're then watching who is clicking and opening all these things. And I'll show you a little bit how we do that in a moment. And those then, the most popular topics become the webinar, like we're doing today. As you may notice when you got on this today, we use freeconferencecall.com. Notice the free. It doesn't cost us anything. And we record those. Those webinars, we then record, and we can have them transcribed into an ebook for a couple $100. Gosh, I think all in, when we do an ebook or a white paper, it turns into about a $300 to $400 piece. Then that goes up onto our website. People can download it, you see. And here's what we do, gang, is we repeat this month after month after month. And that's what enables us to scale and get that velocity I told you about earlier. So this is the premise. Now, one of the most important things of growing our reputation and our status and our engagement across all these platforms is, I think it was about 2 years ago, we intentionally decided this. To scale this company and improve its reputation, especially those that know me, we would need to do that by having our entire staff involved. Every single person, regardless of their experience, regardless of their seniority in the organization, they would have the opportunity to develop some authentic, real content. And by the way, that is key. That is key. Authentic, real content. I think a lot of times associations get stuck, or even businesses get stuck, because they try to be brilliant with every single post. My thinking is that keeps you from having the velocity and the scale that you really need to make an impact in the world that we're in. You need to go more often, and actually, in some cases, okay is good enough, because you need to be out there so much. So what's happened here is, as you can see from some of my colleagues, great people. On a quarterly basis, everyone is required to develop two pieces of thought leadership, a blog and a video. And frankly, in some cases, they become our most popular items, right? People really love it. And by the way, they have a different following than I do. So every time we do that, we're all reposting each other's content, and it's enabling us to scale and expand our reach. Everyone is required to share the content across their social media channels, of which we've required them to set up. So Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're all there, and they're all sharing. We actually incentivize and review people based on their engagement in this program. If you don't put your thought leadership pieces together, you'll get hit for that. Now, here's the good part about it. This is building their credibility in the market. So in other words, if you go onto our website and you click onto our staff, you'll go to Bethany Murphy's content on this success disease as an example, and we've got those linked up for you so you can see them later. But see, she's got all of her thought leadership pieces. Now she becomes a thought leader and a real expert in the space. Hey, here's the other thing, folks. Live video, you've got, most of you, within arm's length, and I'm reaching down here right now. Within arm's length, you have a device that probably has a red button. And you can click the record button and develop some new, fresh content for your members and prospects. Here's why I like live video. It's fairly new, i.e., we haven't ruined it yet, right? So you can still get out there pretty quickly. It's probably, in my view, the best way to have an authentic connection. And here's the other thing. The fact of the matter is, YouTube is the second most used search engine other than Google on the whole dang planet. So and people are going to YouTube as their second source of searching for information. And it's really easy to track content. Here's a quick video that I did this weekend. Here's the Big Red M. We sponsored the Moery Company car at the Indianapolis 500 with Sebastian Bourdais. So, right, this is just quick stuff. It doesn't have to be complicated. That's shot from iPhone. It doesn't have to be overly produced, right? You need to go. Now, here's the other thing that's so useful for a small organization like ours, is I can then go in and I'll look at my Facebook page. I'm showing it to you right now, heck. And you're going to see the numbers of views of these different videos that we're doing. And a lot of times they're short. This is when we're launching our new book. It's just random stuff. But I can look at this and go, they're interested in that. I'm going to run that again. I'm going to run that video content again. Or I'm going to either repost it or I'll talk about that topic over and over again because I see that people are interested. Video, please use it. Okay. The other thing I want to chat about is a lot of folks will say, well, email's dead. Wrong. Email is actually still a great communications vehicle. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, I know you're going to hear from your members, hey, we don't look at our email anymore. Hey, the fact of the matter is that most people, like half of all human beings, admit through research that they read their email in bed at night. That's a disruptive technology that I want to be a part of. So it's still viable. There's no doubt that open rates are in decline. This is why I want to be diversified by supporting it with video and podcasting. Okay, so here's what we're doing. Now we've got it. Now I used to work with SmartBrief. I know Multiviews out there. There are a variety of different resources. We are partnered with InLoop, and here's kind of what I like about it. So right now, we are developing with InLoop, they're our platform, we're sending out a weekly e-newsletter. And we have an AI-powered daily news feed that's on our website. So that's integrated into our website, so we're always pulling relevant news and content for the association space from CEO Update and association trends and other places. What we're able to do then is track what people are most interested in. And some of you may be the victims of this strategy, because here's what I do. We send out that weekly e-newsletter, right? And then I can open that e-newsletter and see who opens it and how many times they click on it, on the content, and what areas they clicked onto, which tells me what they might most be interested in. For those of you that have done it with us multiple times, it prioritizes who I might reach out to as a potential client, to be honest with you. So when I see an organization like the Associated Builders and Contractors that we're working with, and I see somebody clicking on there 15 times, it's telling me that that information is being shared within the company, and there's something happening that we're doing that might be relevant to them. Let me give them a call and see what's going on. That's how we do it. On the right is a picture of my good friend, Scott Lynch. Oh, and let me remind you real quick, if you have any questions, put them in the little cartoon dialogue box there, and I'll try to get to them for you. So, as email open rates are declining, and you might be seeing that in your own content and your own delivery, podcasting is growing by double digits every year. 144 million people say that they're listening to a podcast, and 90 million of them are listening to them every month, and millions of people are listening to an average of seven different podcasts. Year over year, this platform is increasing, and this is the place for you to be, without a doubt. It may be the most intimate communication you get with a listener or a person that's interested in your organization. Let me show you how you might think about doing it. Right now we have 17,000 episodes. Gosh, it feels like it sometimes. 200 episodes and 17,000 downloads. Here's how we do it. First of all, we had to intentionally decide how the podcasts fit within our overall structure. Here's why that's important. We decided it was to build awareness and generate content, but it had to be scalable. And I told you about that process that we use now. In other words, I don't really have time to go out and try to schedule, although I'd like to, 30-minute interviews with association CEOs across town. I could do that, but man, let me tell you, we wouldn't have 200 episodes right now. And I wouldn't have 17,000 downloads. So that became a part of it intentionally. The blogs became my podcast scripts. So if you listen to my podcast, heck, most of the time it's no more than 5 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes most. If it's 10 minutes, I'm really riffing on something. Here's the equipment we use. You basically see it here in this picture. Kim and I are talking here. I think we're faking it because there's not a computer or laptop to record it. But basically, that's the equipment. Laptop, a USB cord, and a mic. That's it. All in, gosh, maybe $500. Right? And we record those because I've got those blog scripts, remember. Basically, what I do is Bang, bang, bang. 5 of them. I rip them off in an hour. We're done. Kim does, if you listen, right? We want it to be really kind of gritty. So we don't do it. Heck, there's not a lot of post-production here. We do a little bit of editing, right? We do that on a free software system called Audacity. And then we save it on a site called Libsyn. That's where it's hosts. Then we can upload it onto iTunes. Make sure you do this. We get a big number of our downloads come from our website. So then you put it on iTunes and website. And you might say, well, what about Stitcher and iRadio and all that? You can do that. It's just going to take time. And the fact of the matter is, probably 97% of all of your downloads will come from iTunes and your website. So go ahead and do that on those other platforms. That's fine. iTunes is the most important. And then every time we do a new episode, we're promoting it where? On social and in our e-newsletter. Again, remember, from that beginning discussion at that monthly riff session where we get together for an hour, all of this is scaled and we just run it over and over and over again. So, what does it mean to the business? Here's some numbers from us, and I think and we're just a small 12-person association consulting firm, folks. Here's what we've seen since May of 2016. Our website engagement by doing this is up 65%. Our sales cycle in getting new clients has dropped, and the length of time it's taken to get a new client has gone down 25%. And you know why? It's because when we walk in and speak with folks, they already know us. They already know us because they're listening or watching or reading. And we've experienced 34% growth overall in the business since this time. Again, and the budget that we required, like our newsletter is a partnership with InLoop, but they even have ad models there where you could be making money through that program. Some of them are going to require a small fee, but you guys can work that out, and whoever your email platform vendor is. But then we've got basically $500 in equipment, $240 in hosting a year. The investment is minimal. Now, your association may require that you put a lot more money into it. Frankly, sometimes we do that in the association business. We make it too hard. And then as an example, what happens? We never get out of the gate. And as a result, we're only making 31 communications outreaches a month instead of the hundreds that you could be doing. So some final thoughts for you. As you move forward, this would be my checklist. Look at your inventory and how you might be able to scale it and what kind of different platforms are you using. Your content, make sure it's authentic. And make sure more people than just here's what I see in associations. You need more people than just the CEO and maybe the head lobbyist and the communications person out there doing it. Everybody in the organization needs to be. But the content should reinforce the value proposition, what you're all about, what you're doing, and resist the temptation to use it because it's cheap and it's scalable and you can do it quick to just spend all your time promoting your stuff. Hey, early bird registration. Hey, register for this. Hey, buy this book. Too much association, I think. We've got the opportunity to distribute a lot of content that's really useful, including from some people, and I guarantee you know them and I do too. There are people in your organization that are worth the price of membership. That are worth the price of membership because of what they know. Showcase them through blogs, video, and on your podcast. Let them go. Because when they do that, the value of your organization is going to go up. And then make sure that you repurpose that same content in all of those different formats that we talked about today. And don't forget this. I would just encourage you to do this. If you don't have one, look into launching a podcast. I think if you go through the process of saying, where does this fit in our overall strategy, it might be a game changer for you. Here's what I wanted to challenge you to do. Think about how your audience, who your audience is, and how you might best serve them in that podcast. And the challenge will be keeping it from becoming just an audio version of your website, okay? Or your audio of your marketing brochure. But launch it, look into it this year because it's growing so fast that you need to get on that wave as some of these other more traditional methods are in decline. Hey, I told you I never sell you anything, but I just do one thing. I've got a bunch of books here in my closet. If you like this content and maybe some of the other things that we have to offer, it's all. So here's the final thing. On this, the Association Hustle Playbook, all this content that I talked to you about, we scaled it for 3 years, and it became this book that I'd love to make available to you. We'll send you the link. And if you ever want to connect, I want to make sure that you hold me accountable. Here are all of our association content platforms that you might be interested in. Our YouTube channel, our blog, you can get our mailings, and you're going to see this in practice happen to you, right? You'll see that we actually practice what we preach on this. I'm looking, I don't have any questions in the message box. My gosh, we're like 4 hours, we're 4 minutes early. I don't think I've ever done that in the history of rolling out these webinars, but I certainly hope that this is useful to you. I'd love to connect, and I'm so grateful that you would spend a half an hour with me on the Tuesday after Memorial Day, and I hope you have a wonderful summer. Thanks for joining me. On behalf of the entire Moery Company team, I'm J.P. Moery. Keep hustling, you guys. Bye-bye.